Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Fire Up Michigan. My name is Scott Morganroth, Motor City Madmouth, here on our usual Monday night slot. We are here to talk all Michigan sports. We have a couple of other things we might add to it as well. So, welcome to be joined by my regular crew, Smoking Jeremy. Welcome back, Jeremy.
Thank you.
And George Icorn.
Hi, Scott. Everybody, good to see you.
To give everybody an overview of your book real quick, and then I'm going to go ahead to Big D.
Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air is the name of the book, and it chronicles guys from Ernie Harwell and Van Patrick, Ray Lane, and Bruce Martin, Bud Lynch. And there's a page even there for our good man, host of this show, Scott Morganroth. Scott's interviewing Jimmy Connors in one picture, and the late, great Muhammad Ali in the other one. So get your book. There's a link to it on the South Florida Tribune website. At the end of any column of mine, Scott and Candy have a link there that you can order the book, and it's available to anyone. So thank you.
And final member of our crew, Don DeRubis. Don, welcome back, buddy.
Thanks for having me. How we doing?
Oh, we're doing okay. So let's talk some Lions football. Just give you an overview of what we're talking about tonight. We'll be talking about the Detroit Lions on two occasions, the Detroit Tigers and former Lions quarterback Matthew Stafford, who will be playing tonight against the 49ers. So with that said, okay, we'll talk about the Lions defense, schematic or offensive coordinator Aaron Glenn. We don't know, but the reality is the Lions are on a pace to allow 599 points this season, and that would set a new record. The current record is 533 points set by the 1981 Baltimore Colts. Yes, Baltimore Colts, and their current 35.25 points per game. All right, Dom, well, what's wrong with the Lions defense?
Man, I wish I could say it was just one thing. I mean, generally, I would say for starters, there's a lack of talent. I mean, we start our base defense is a 4-2-5 for Christ's sake. Where that's how thin we are in the linebacking core. Something that I noticed this week that was really disappointing. Kind of seemed like we didn't learn. I don't know, a single thing from week one in playing a mobile quarterback in Jalen Hurts, because what I saw again this week was a lot of over pursuit. Guys not staying in their pass rush lanes, and I mean Geno Smith picked us apart. Amani Oruwariye, I don't know what version of him that showed up this year, but it's definitely not the guy that I saw last season. There's been a few bright spots. Jeff Okuda's played very well. Malcolm Rodriguez has held the fort down as good as possible, but man, it's hard to watch.
Jeremy?
Well, seeing as I was at the game, I'm going to give my synopsis. We were told this is going to be an attacking 4-2-5 defense, which means blitzing 4 or more people, not 3, not just 4 or more. I haven't seen 5 people blitz since the mini game.
Okay.
You can't do that. You cannot leave a mediocre secondary on an island with guys 6 to 8 seconds and not get pressure. We had 5 pressures and 2 QB hits. 3 of those pressures and the 2 QB hits came from Hutch. Other than that, there was nothing. It's abysmal. I mean, you say what you want. Through the first half, Jeff Okuda was keeping DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett when he was on him in check. As soon as at the end of the half, when that deep ball that DK made the great play while Jeff Okuda was draped on him like a cheap suit, he started to look bad because he was gassed.
Okay. George, you want to add to it?
They're just running circles. They're running circles around the Lions defense. You guys hit it right on the head. I mean, there's no pass rush to be considered. Hutchinson is really struggling right now, and you can't put it all on him. He's a first-year pro, as we know. He does obviously have a learning curve, as every rookie does in the NFL, for sure, especially on defense. Skilled position players usually take more time to develop, and he's showing that. But like you guys were saying, the defense, the secondary, they're running circles around our secondary. We're leaving them out there. Good point by saying it like an island. And, these guys are running all over us. These running quarterbacks, as you guys said, the mobile quarterbacks are killing us. We have no stoppage there. And Metcalf just went off the map. I mean, he had an unbelievable day, but it's just blown coverage, stupid penalties. And again, like you said, not enough pressure on the quarterback, not enough blitzing. And it's creating all kinds of problems. I mean, this offense is the worst the defense is the worst in the league right now. And like you said, Scott, you don't want to set records like that over 500 points, breaking the Baltimore Colts record. And my God, that was in less games than they're playing now, because back then they didn't play 17 games, as we know. So we're on a course to disaster that's got to be stopped.
Well, last year, remember they cut Anthony Lynn loose, right, for a while. So now you wonder about Aaron Glenn. I mean, do you go out there? I don't think they're ready to quite go that route. They got it. But that's why you have OTAs. That's why you have preseason. That's why you have training camp to get these worked out. I mean, I can tell you one thing from what I hear, okay, and again, yesterday, just so folks, Candy Ebeling and I embarked on a 2-day trip up to Talladega, Alabama, and had an opportunity to see some races over at Talladega, Alabama. I did get this Hendrick Motorsports cap because we were in victory lane yesterday, and they chucked it back there. It got tipped, and I took my left hand and grabbed it. So what a beautiful thing, Hendrick, get free advertising because I was able to catch it with my left hand. But the one thing I was doing is monitoring the Lions game a little bit. My God, when you think about Jared Goff, he's not the problem from what I understand. And at least the Lions should feel pretty good that, they are confident in Goff. It's just the people you have around. And let's not forget the fact I think Amos St. Brown wasn't even playing. And
Shark.
And DJ Chark. So you lost some key offensive players, and they still managed to score over 40 points. But I'll reiterate my point. You have OTAs, you have preseason, you have training camp, and now you have this problem. So, at some point or another, is Aaron Glenn going to be on the chopping block? I don't know, Dan. You can't always look for a coach to be a scapegoat all the time, but this does come under a lot of scrutiny nonetheless. So, 45 points to lose. To me, this is a Lions theme here, right? Let's score 45 and still lose. And it's not a good theme. All right, let's move over to the Detroit Tigers. We have one Tigers subject, and then we'll go back to football. And then we'll be able to call it a night. And in about a moment, I'm going to do some station ID. In fact, I'm going to do it just about now here. And what we'll end up doing is letting you know that you can subscribe to the South Florida Tribune on our YouTube channel, or visit www.southfloridatribune.com, and then follow us on Twitter at Tribune South. To advertise, call 954-304-4941. The audio portion of the show can be heard on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And also, if you struggle finding us on the website, go ahead to youtube.com, look for South Florida Tribune, and please hit the subscribe button. That way you get all the updates that are out there. Now on to the Detroit Tigers. The Detroit Tigers have won 8 of 10 games, avoid losing 100 games, and they end with a 4-game series tonight in Seattle. Miguel Cabrera goes into the series 3 hits shy of Ichiro Suzuki for 23rd on the MLB hit list. Currently has 3,086 hits. He has 1,846 career RBIs, 507 home runs, 2 shy of Tigers teammate Gary Sheffield, and he's 26th all-time, and he's expected to play in 2 of the 4 games against Seattle. I know he faced an old friend the other day, and Michael Fulmer, who, by the way, didn't get into the playoffs either. So, Tigers made that trade. Fulmer, the Twins were hoping he would be able to get him there. And by the way, Will Vogel, thank you very much. How you doing, pal? He's in the chat room. We appreciate that. So how do you size up? We talked about Scott Harris a week ago, but the Tigers go 8-2. They avoid losing 100 games. All right, Jeremy, give me your take on the Detroit Tigers, what we've seen over the last 10 games. That there was capabilities that they should be able to do a lot better than they were. and they're playing better. That shows you that they're playing better ball under A.J. Hinch, and he was never the problem from the outset. With that said, Jeremy, give us your take on the Tigers.
This roster needs help. They got talent in the right spots, but not enough talent throughout the whole roster, top to bottom, in the batting lineup. Not enough in the pitching rotation, and not enough in the bullpen. And as I said, with a closer that likes to have friends on the base fast because he's lonely, it makes it hard to maintain closing games. Soto gets a lot of saves, but he blows a lot of them too.
George.
Yeah, I agree with Jeremy. Soto is a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde. He's got 30 saves, but he's got a terrible losing record. I mean, I don't know what he is, 2-9, 2-8, which, okay, so technically those aren't called blown saves. Give me a break. They're losses that he took. So they're, in my book, they are blown saves. I don't know if he's the answer for next year. I don't know. We'll have to see on that. The fact that they're winning, I don't know. Maybe the fact that the owner said, "Wait a minute, I'm serious about this," and when he fired Al Avila, sent a signal to these guys saying, "Hey, this guy's serious," and perhaps it did motivate him a little bit, like you said, Scott, to go 8-2 in the last 10 games. It did all happen, after Scott Harris got here. The point of the matter is that the roster does need a shakedown, obviously. Jeremy, you're right on. I mean, there's going to be a lot of changes on this team. This guy's not going to be afraid to make trades, to make free agent signings. I assume that Chris Ilitch is going to open up the pocketbook, maybe not as big as he did last winter when they signed 4 guys, but maybe so. And as far as the coaching goes, I still think they got to get rid of Coolbaugh as the hitting coach because the team strikes out way too much and they're flailing at the plate on some of those pitches, and it's just disgusting. There's no control. There's no control as far as the strike zone goes. So he's going to have to make a few changes, I believe, on the coaches. And then, like we talked about, he's going to have to make quite a few roster additions to make this team more presentable next year.
Well, George, you make an excellent point. Scott Harris in charge. You're playing for a job next year. Period.
Yeah.
He doesn't care. This guy's looking at it right now. I think the best part about the Scott Harris hiring was it happened when it did. You don't have to do it during the offseason. Bring him in now so he can assess what he has in real live action. That's the biggest thing, this whole thing. Al Avila should have been gone really over a year ago, 2 years
Who would you
ago.
say is safe in our rotation? Maybe the top 3?
Well, George.
But I'm not saying they'll stay top 3. I'm just saying those 3 pitchers should stay in the rotation.
Yeah, it depends who's healthy. I mean, obviously you want the young kids in the rotation, Manning, Skubal, Spencer Turnbull. I don't know when he's going to be able to come back from Tommy John.
Right.
You got Rodriguez.
Yep, and then Casey Mize.
Right. Well, yeah, that's the one we forgot.
Well,
Casey. Yeah.
You mentioned Rodriguez. My gut feeling is I wouldn't be surprised to see if Scott Harris would roll him out of here. Here's a guy that
was abysmal.
Personal problem. And you know what? That's a great segue to bring Don in here. All right, Don, give us your assessment of the Tigers, and tell you or nod your head what I mentioned Rodriguez. So take it up from there, Don.
Yeah, that's probably the first thing that needs to happen in the offseason is Rodriguez needs to go. I mean, that this is the dude that literally disappeared, was almost just dropped off the face of the earth. Team couldn't get a hold of him, didn't know where he was, didn't know if he was alive, dead, wanting to still be a Major League Baseball player or not. But as good as it is to see a little, hot streak at the end of the year, to me it's almost more frustrating because it's way too little, way too late. This team has been dead since, I don't know, Memorial Day, buried since before 4th of July. And baseball to me, even though it seems like the off season is about, I don't know, 3 weeks long, I don't see this little run here at the end as, light at the end of the tunnel or something you could look to as, we can carry this momentum into next season. There's no momentum and major changes coming up and down the lineup, throughout the bullpen. Need a new closer. It's I mean, I would like to assume that it'll be better next year, but I mean, it can't get much worse. People are jumping up and down and clapping their hands. Hey, we avoided losing 100 games. That's not something to be proud of. This was supposed to be like an 80 or 85 win team, and
that was a sigh of relief thing. Now they based that 80-85 win team off of the fact we took third in the division last year, which you remember, Dom, I said they overachieved. This team is not that good. They just came together at the right time to beat a few bad teams to get that place.
Right.
You look at it, they did less than 500 against the top teams. They were slightly over 500 against the bottom feeders, and they were middle of the road against everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, and then the other thing is that I think a lot of people were optimistic too, because remember that happened in the second half.
Right, because they were in fourth place, I think, not quite dead last, but they were in fourth place, and then they had what was it, an 11 or 12 game win streak, I think they had there right after the All-Star break.
Yeah,
and that's what moved them up, and they just managed to do enough to keep Kansas City from passing them.
Right. And then the spurt came, and then the offseason where they picked up 4 or 5 new players, and now all of a sudden everybody says, and that was a mistake.
I said Baez and Rodriguez was a mistake as soon as we signed them. Ask Dom. We talked about it in a Detroit chat where we talk about all sports. I sat there. I said it's a mistake taking those 2 guys. Rodriguez doesn't stay on the field the whole season when he's even in his rotation spot, and Baez was too free of a swinger and way too aggressive at the plate.
And
I thought in my mind they should have brought in Carlos Correa, number 1. That's because he had a relationship with AJ Hinch.
Yes.
But the other one you guys are missing out on is Austin Meadows. Boy, did that turn out to be an absolute disaster what?
Once he got hurt, he fell off the planet.
Yeah, he did.
Well, now he's got mental issues. What's that all about? Mental issues, yeah. And then
when you play like trash, you start to feel like trash.
Isak Paredes is going to the playoffs with Tampa Bay.
Remember? Well, thank you for bringing it up. That crazy gave him up to bring this guy, and how did that work out? It blew up in their face. Thanks for bringing that up, George. Appreciate it. So,
sure.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, a little bit of Tigers action here. We'll be curious, but Scott Harris is going to clean house big time. He really, really is. I think the biggest thing with the Tigers is whether they get their young arms back from all these Tommy John operations until you can find out what you really have. I'm glad they didn't trade Tarek Skubal. I don't think it was a problem. You can't keep trading talent away. You just can't keep doing it. Michael Fulmer was on an expiring contract, so you had nothing to lose there.
Now, if you're getting an all-star, like when you trade away the farm to get people like Pudge and stuff like that, like Dave Dombrowski did, that's different. That's game-changing type of stuff. But if you're trading away and getting a player of lesser value in return and lesser prospects in return, that is bad management. And that's what Al Avila did consistently.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Al Avila. Okay, you just got it right there. All right, with that said, we'll go back to the Detroit Lions. And their next opponent, I think Jeremy's going to love this one. Okay, but they nevertheless, their next opponent is the New England Patriots. They're 1 up, 3 down. New England actually used Bailey Zappi, who went 10 of 15 for 99 yards. And the Pats actually forced overtime in that 27-24 loss to the Patriots. Just to give you some information, though, on Zappi, I saw him play over at Western Kentucky. What a player, too. I was hoping the Lions would pick him up, but they didn't, nevertheless. But he's a 4th-round pick out of Western Kentucky, 137 overall. But his numbers over at Western Kentucky were 5,967 yards, 62 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. His total numbers in his collegiate career are 14,433 total, 135 touchdowns versus 40 interceptions. All right, well, this is your opportunity to bring in Matt Patricia into the show, because now the Patriots are 1-3. The Lions are probably the best 1-3 team that they can score a lot, but they give up a lot. So take it away, Jeremy.
We need to establish that run, establish it hard, and control the time of clock. We cannot let these guys get on the field and dominate. They run the ball well, too. So that means everybody has to maintain their gap assignments during the running plays. They can't be over pursuing all the time. Who can I say? Derek Barnes, Ali McNeil, Michael Brockers. Do something other than be a bump on the log on the D-line.
Warm sack of fluid.
Dom knows this. I said, man, that's a bad trade. I said he was only had decent pressure numbers in LA because he played next to Aaron Donald. He goes anywhere else, he's an older, slower version of Danny Shelton, and his stats have proved it.
Supposed to be this vaunted, stopper in the run game. Haven't seen it.
An eater of blockers.
A bill of goods. That's what we were sold.
That being said, Matt Patricia, you look at that offense is not scoring nowhere near what they did under Josh McDaniels. You look at their average, I think they're sitting at 21.2. The Lions are damn near scoring 40 points a game right now. On paper, we should win. Just like on paper, we should have beat the Seahawks. But until we see them do it, I can't in my heart say, oh, we're going to win this game. I can't do it. We just put up 45 points and still lost. Now, there was one key thing that I want to bring up in that game versus the Seahawks, because I'm still scratching my head and trying to figure it out, because I was there. The play clocks were moving. Nothing had looked out of the ordinary. We stop them on a third down that would have forced a punt because they were too far away to kick a field goal, because the field goal kicker already missed 2 field goals at this point for their team. And all of a sudden, you hear all the whistles, and they're calling the play clock dead, and they reset the play clock to the beginning of the play, gave them a new play clock, and said, redo third down. There wasn't a penalty. There was nothing wrong with that play. There was nothing wrong with the play clock. And also in the first half, when we started to mount our comeback, they ran the clock for 30 seconds after a penalty.
Okay.
So that's 2 clock mismanagements that I'm going to put on the refs. I'm not saying they cost us the game. The defense cost us the game 100%. But that was a defensive stop that would have got a punt, and they never had to punt in the game because they reset that play clock and let them do it over again.
Okay.
I looked at the guy next to me in the press box, and I said, can you believe this? And you know who it was, Scott? Our friend Frank Garza sat next to me.
Oh, yeah?
And we just rolled our eyes. Only the Lions, and only a questionable call involving the officials.
And then the pass interference flag picked up again. Normally, if there isn't pass interference, what do they normally say? There is no penalty on the play.
Yep.
He specifically said the exact same words as the guy in the Dallas game. Well, there's no flag for pass interference on the play. The fact you said pass interference meant that it was in question.
Right. Yeah, I knew they were in trouble when that one back judge threw that flag, and then the other one comes running up to him. And I said to Frank, I says, look at this. They're going to reverse this call. Now, the clock thing, though, that is something that's also upstairs, don't forget, in the press box. There's a clock operator in addition to the guys on the field.
Right.
Well, I don't know. They have not given us a full explanation of what happened. Were seconds withdrawn or taken away that shouldn't have been on the third down? I don't know, but it was ridiculous to, and of course the Lions' luck.
And Frank Garza's right here. He says, how many times was the game stopped on flags then no penalty called? God,
there you are, Frank.
3 times. 3 times I counted that happen. And one time a penalty was called and they didn't stop the clock. How can you have a penalty, which is an automatic stoppage of play, automatic stoppage of the clock, that kept running? That happened at the 5:04 mark. And because they did that explanation and they went back to the huddle and gave them another 40 seconds, the play didn't end till 4:33.
I'm sure we'll get our typical Wednesday morning we screwed up from the officials, like we always do. Won't matter.
Frank Garza said that changes the momentum of the game. Absolutely, it does.
Yep, and that's what it did. Thank you, Frank, for your comments.
Yep. Thank you, Frank. So, with that said, Dom, some thoughts about this, about Bailey Zappi. I saw him. He's a heck of a quarterback. I wouldn't be surprised at some point if he isn't the Patriots starting quarterback. The Patriots will trade him at some point down the road and get a big, massive haul for him in the league. Definitely, I've seen this guy. He's an incredible player.
You know, we have a quarterback that threw for over 6,000 yards and rushed for almost 2,500 in high school on the roster, right?
No, who's that?
Malcolm Rodriguez.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. He was a quarterback in high school.
He was the quarterback and safety.
I'll just say one thing: Bailey Zappi was one of Bill Belichick's better picks.
It was.
I knew it. I was hoping the Lions would grab him, but when Bill Belichick did that, it was all kind of reminded me a little bit about when Washington drafted RG3. Hold on, Jeremy,
Yep.
and then ended up bringing on Kirk Cousins. That those middle round picks are either going to be starters or trade chips, and that's for Belichick. I don't know how well he does at the top of the draft, but he knows how to find these players in the middle. And I know the Red Wings made a living doing that, taking players later on, and that's how they built the core of their Stanley Cup. Go ahead, Jeremy.
And there was 3 quarterbacks last draft that I wanted, and I told Dom all 3 of them, if we're waiting to the later rounds and it's somebody we want, it was Skylar Thompson, Bailey Zappi, and the last one, I said, if you don't pick one in the draft, there's one sitting in the UDFA that played in a Division II school in the same division as Trey Lance and Christian Watson, Eric Barriere out of Eastern Washington University. That kid put up Madden numbers in that Big Sky division where they're predicated around good defenses. I think against Montana State, the one that had Troy Anderson and Lance McCutcheons and all them, he put up 500 yards, 180 on the ground,
Wow.
and 8 total touchdowns in that game.
Jeez.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Skylar Thompson. I'm glad you did. I'll be surprised to see him get some game action at the rate we're going, because that Tua Tagovailoa thing, there's going to be, and we're not even going to get into that tonight.
No.
It's going to get ugly because we could spend an hour or two on that. We don't have the time for it. And by the way, I should point out, Fire Up Florida is on deck. So I'll go ahead and mention that. We'll have another opportunity to do another station ID. Subscribe to the South Florida Tribune on our YouTube channel, or visit www.southfloridatribune.com, and follow us on Twitter at Tribune South. Advertise, call 954-304-4941. The audio portion of the show can be heard on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Or if you can't find us through the website, go youtube.com, hit South Florida Tribune. Please subscribe. You'll have all the notifications of all the different shows we have on there. So, but yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Jeremy Skylar Thompson. I think he could see some game action. And when somebody questioned me about him because his numbers weren't overly great in college, I said, you know what? First of all, Matt Castle was an undrafted free agent, had a serviceable career. And Skylar Thompson, Mike McDaniel went on record when he said, hey, you know what? He's one of the best 53 players, and I wanted to keep him. You know, to justify that if you feel he's good and you have a third quarterback that's serviceable. All right, we'll go back to Tom. Give me your observations about what we can expect with the Lions and the Patriots. Bear in mind the game is in New England. I don't know whether that'll matter or not, but go ahead, Tom.
Well, like Jeremy said, I can't sit here and give you a reason, or God forbid, reasons why we would win this game. I'll stick to my original prediction from the preseason. Everyone kind of called me crazy, but I said we're going to beat the Patriots. We should be able to, if we can do any sort of run stopping. Obviously, the advantage tips heavily in our favor with quarterbacks between Goff versus Zappi. Obviously, no one, probably including Baylor Zappi, expected to see him getting game action this early in the year. I don't know that it's much of a drop-off from Mac Jones. It's a well-established idea how I feel about Mac Jones, so no need to recap that. But all right, I'll say it one more time. Mac Jones' NFL ceiling is so low he has to duck when he walks in a room. It's just a fact. But like Jeremy said, they run the ball well, as do we. I really hope to see some more touches and some more snaps for Craig Reynolds. He played very well on the limited number of snaps he did get.
Justin
And-
Jackson as well.
Yeah. Hopefully we can keep it a little closer on the scoreboard so we have the opportunity to run the ball a little bit more. I mean, Jamal Williams ran well when he did run it. I don't think that New England's offense is as good as the Seahawks, but guess what? I didn't think the Seahawks offense was very good either. They hung 48 on us, 48 points. 45 points scored in a loss, most in NFL history.
Well, wait. 7 of those points came from the defense. It was 41 on offense.
There you go.
True. That's true.
That's true.
Well, let me ask you guys a question. If I heard correctly, didn't they score 47 points all season, from what I've heard? Or
they had scored 47 points over 3 games.
Right,
that's
over
13.
3 games.
That's almost 13 points a game.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got 40. Hear me out. You got 47 points over 3 games, put a 48 spot. I don't care defense or not. In the end, it's not going to go up. Defense, offense, it's still 48 in the game, no matter how you slice it. Okay, so you get 48 against the Detroit Lions, and you have 47 against 3 teams.
I'll accept partial blame for talking up Geno Smith all year long, because I said it in the preseason. I said he's going to beat out Drew Lock for that job. And then he had that primetime game against Denver, and he shined, and he won that game. And then he came in and kicked our butts. He looked like an all-pro. But
they're 3-1.
Well, remember one thing: Pete Carroll's a coach. That does count for something.
No, he's a bundle of energy, Pete Carroll, and he's a proven winner. I know that for sure.
Frank Garza asked a good question.
Yeah, go ahead. You know what, Jeremy?
So does AG go? How does Campbell handle this? You know what? Maybe he's going to do something similar to Anthony Lynn. He does not believe in firing coaches in season. Maybe he promotes Aubrey Pleasant and demotes Aaron Glenn to the secondary.
Well, I don't think that's going to happen. The thing that really surprises me is Glenn has been on the short list of several clubs in the interview process for being a head coach.
Not anymore.
I was going to say,
no,
I'm fans out there.
I'm just saying, did everybody have this wrong in the NFL?
He is a smart guy. I think he just made the wrong choice for the scheme he wanted to run. I think he should have stuck with the scheme that started working at the end of the season, because we kept 60% of that roster on defense. You can't expect guys that just started getting the one scheme done and then say, hey, guys, guess what? We're going to do a new scheme this year.
There's always tinkering with the playbook, though, but not.
Yeah, you can tinker with the playbook. I don't mind running 4-man fronts. I don't mind adding more 4-man fronts. It's necessary. That's when you get pressure, because then you throw in a linebacker or a cornerback blitz. We haven't seen it since Tracy Walker got hurt.
No. Fair enough. All right, George, give me your assessment on the Lions Patriots. We have one more topic to
get to. Just like the guy said, on paper, the Lions should win this game. Patricia, obviously he would like to get some revenge on the Lions, but that only goes so far. And because of the upside down quarterback situation with New England, and I really think that the Lions offensively are just no match for New England. But again, like you guys just said earlier, we thought they were going to beat Seattle. They didn't beat Seattle, but I'm going to go ahead and say that Detroit will win this game. I'm going to go with Dom on that one. And I would have said that too in the preseason. But the fact of the matter is that that's only going to make the Lions 2-3, but it's a hell of a lot better than being 1-4.
I said in the preseason, if the Lions can come out of the first 5 games with 2 or more wins, they're in a good spot.
Well, I'll just say one thing to close out this topic. Okay. Patricia wants to get revenge against the Lions. I would think the Lions organization would like to stick it to him, because he's the guy that replaced James Caldwell. So I don't know about the revenge thing, and I'm leaving it there, because we can go a lot of things there.
I know what I want to do with that pencil of his.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people think the same way there. Final topic of the night, Monday Night Football. From the Lion Matthew Stafford on the road with the 2-1 Rams at the 49ers. Stafford's numbers to date: 74 for 102 yards, 761 yards, 4 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. I'll give everybody a brief opportunity to talk about this. And we'll go back to smoking because he's been smoking all night, not only with comments, but he's doing an incredible job in the chat room. And guess what, smoking? Because of your dynamite contribution in the chat room, you're going to be doing it every week now. You just added yourself a responsibility.
No problem.
On answering the questions. So with that way, you're going to answer my question. Size up tonight's game with Matthew Stafford.
Well, in season, the Rams are 0-2 versus the Rams in regular season last year with Matt Stafford. For some reason, they seem to choke in season. He didn't beat him until the NFC Championship game, which, if the special teams group couldn't have choked as bad as they did for the Green Bay Packers, they might not have been there. But I love the fact I get to say that.
Well, I mean, obviously, this first time we brought it up, you're glad to see Stafford finally win a ring over in LA.
Yeah, I mean, it just validated a lot of us who defended Stafford, saying he wasn't the problem. He needed a team around him. He went to a team that was built for Goff. Remember this, because up until the Friday before he was traded, Goff is our guy. We're building this team around him. I think Goff would have won a Super Bowl last year with the Rams if they were calling the plays the same way.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. You mentioned that too. Goff is doing all right here in Detroit. He's not the problem.
He's 1,143 yards, 11 touchdowns, 3 picks.
Right.
Now, granted, 2 of them are pick sixes.
No big deal. You know what?
They happen. Good QBs make mistakes.
Brett Favre's thrown a couple of those in his career, I think.
Yeah, you think?
Okay, I think the only one that's thrown more than Matt Stafford so far.
Well, I'll tell you one thing about Goff. Say what you want, but Brad Holmes knew what he was doing when he brought him over here, and then he got picks with him. So the Lions' problems, folks, are not at the quarterback position.
It's defense. Anybody who thinks we should take anything other than defense in the first round after watching these first 4 games, they need their head examined. Yeah, we need a stout linebacker, possibly another stout DT, and a safety. Any one of those 3, I'm good with in the first round.
Well, let me go back to my point, okay? Brad Holmes gets Goff, and not only that, you also have Mark Brunell as your quarterback coach, and he gets a change of scenery. And by the way, he got some draft choice with it. Yes, Matthew Stafford got a Super Bowl with a much better supporting cast. We all know that. But Jared Goff has not been a problem, and I hope the Lions continue their commitment toward Jared Goff. Beyond, I think he'd like to stay here. I think Jared Goff would like to prove a lot of his doubters wrong, and there's no better place than to do it here in Detroit. I'm going to move it over to Dom, though. Continue on with Matthew Stafford with the Rams, Lions, and any way you want to go with this topic.
He's looked a little shaky so far. I believe he led the league in interceptions last year. Granted, he also threw 41 touchdowns, but he threw 17 picks. He has not looked right. He does not appear to yet be in sync with any receiver not named Cooper Kupp. I don't think he got much time to work out, and pretty much no preseason action as far as snaps together with him and Allen Robinson. So Allen Robinson's been a disappointment. They'll figure it out. I think the Rams are – I don't know that they're contenders to repeat, but I think they'll be in the playoffs again. But one thing I was thinking about when it comes to Goff and the Lions offense, we have the number 1 offense in the NFL, and we have yet to see Jameson Williams. However, we are so decimated at the wide receiver position. Now I'm really scared that we rush him back, which is I think would be a terrible move. I saw us do it, 2 seasons ago with Austin Bryant, brought him back for 2 meaningless games at the end of the year, and it set his injury back an entire season. And he's just now this year finally gotten to full health. Kind of disappeared the last couple of games. But
I was to say that his snap count's been low too. The couple of games he made an impact, he had 38% of the snaps. Now he's down below 20. I don't know what's going on with that. Maybe he does have something lingering and they're worried about it or something. I don't know, but we need to get that guy back in there playing because he helped with the pressures. Comiskey, ever since Comiskey went down, Hutch has not had a sack.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah. And the only thing I have to add about Stafford is kind of like what you were saying, Dom, is that, that talk about an injury could be there, and 5 interceptions is not acceptable through the first 3 games. So Stafford, I know, threw a lot, like you said, last year, 17, but he's a better quarterback than what he's been showing so far. So tonight will be a big test in San Francisco, Jimmy G and the 49ers. And, of course, it's a cross-state rival, and there's all kinds of hoopla with that. So it'll be the Monday night game to watch. No question about it. We'll see how good Matthew can be against the 49ers tonight. But there's to repeat is very difficult. And like you said, Dom, they'll make the playoffs, but being repeat, I never thought they could repeat anyways. But who knows?
Yeah, rematch of the NFC Championship game. The one thing I want to mention, though, I do believe at some point the Rams are going to bring back Odell Beckham Jr. I really do. And you know what? You make a great point too about Jameson Williams. I mentioned earlier tonight, and I'll say it again, okay? The Lions put 45 points up without DeAndre Swift and their leading receiver, Amon St. Brown, whatever this guy's name is. That might be my tongue-tied. And they still put 40-plus points up. Can you imagine Jameson Williams? My gosh, I mean, it's just get any kind of defense, any kind.
Ask
how much about the capabilities you can have here.
I said the DJ Shark signing was a decoy to open up Hawkinson and Amon-Ra when we signed him. Ask him. I sat there. I said, I don't think he'll ever put up the numbers he did back in 2019, his only healthy season.
But even if you can get 300 to 500, 600 yards out of DJ Shark, and then
I'm good with that. I'm good with that.
That's my point. Okay, you can spread the yards around amongst 5-10 people. Who cares? You have bullpens like a mini in baseball. Go ahead and have a bunch of wide receivers that can get 500, 600, 700 yards.
But he was lauded as a guy with speed that could contested catch. We have yet to see him make contested catches. Every time it's been hitting him in the hands where only he can catch it. He's dropped it except for like 3 out of the 8 times he's been in a contested catch situation.
DJ Shark is playing for a contract next year. He got a 1-year deal with the Lions. I thought it was an everything to gain, nothing to lose.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's
the guy in Jacksonville, for crying out loud. I applauded the move when it happened.
Oh, I applauded the move too, because I said, now we got a speed threat. It's going to take the pressure off of the guys like Amon-Ra, Cephas, and Hawkinson. And Cephas, I do have it right straight from his mother. It's just a low-grade ankle sprain. He should be fine.
Well, I mean, you got a lot to unpack here, and you guys did an unbelievable job doing it all. So, I mean, any closing thoughts, Jeremy, before we let you promote yourself?
Aaron Glenn, please, if you're going to do a schematic change, go back to what was working last season. The only ones you got to train up then is the rooks.
George?
Salute Hawkinson, 179 yards. It was the best performance by a Detroit Lions tight end in history, beating the record of 161 by a fellow named Jim Gibbons in 1964, and a fellow that we know, Scott, the late Charlie Sanders, had 146 back in 74. So hats off, TJ, a hell of a game. You broke out, buddy. People were talking about you all year, but man, you showed what it was worth to be that number 1 draft choice we made you.
All right, Tom, some closing thoughts.
For the love of God, stop the run. Bailey Zappi is not exactly fleet of foot, nor was Mac Jones when he was healthy. So get some pressures, get some sacks. Somebody get a strip sack. Start creating some turnovers. Obviously, our offense is more than capable of carrying us to victory if we could just hold somebody under. I don't know. I was saying before 27 points was the bar. Now I'm going to say it's more like 34 or 35. Just stop them from scoring 35 because we can score 35.
All right, I'm going to give you a few closing thoughts, a little different. Actually, and he'll be on shortly. Hats off to Mark Mancini. He comes up with some of the best guests I've ever seen on Sports Talk Saturday, and I've been working with Mark for much of the year. But on Saturday, we came up with a show that I actually did out in Talladega, and also hats off to Russell Brandon for the hospitality he extended to Candy Everly and I. But I had an opportunity to go on an hour show with Keith Thorney. And Keith Thorney, to me, had a lot of fun talking about not only his career, but the fact that Keith played with Billy Sims and talked about the turf that he was on, the artificial surface of film. So Mark Mancini really hit a home run with this guest. And I told Keith on Saturday, Sports Talk Saturday, with Bruce Kessinger, I might add. That it's great because I remember we were covering the Lions back in the 80s at the tail end of his career.
Yes.
Keith Thorney has done some unbelievable things, not only on the field, but off of them as well. And I don't have his information from Saturday. You'll Google up what he's doing. He's written a book out there. Keith Thorney, to me, is an incredible guy. And Mark, if you're watching the broadcast, you really hit a grand slam with this guest with Bruce and I. It was an awful lot of fun doing it. One of his better numbers, I think we had over 625 people or so, 620 over an hour show, which was unbelievable for the short time. So you want to talk about the Lion interest, especially when you find guests like that. That was a fun show. And I feel very fortunate to be a part of it because being a Lions person, it was just an easy broadcast for me to do because I knew this guy real well. And hats off to Bruce Kessinger. He's the most unselfish guy I've ever seen in terms of me taking over a show. If I feel I have a lot of things to say, and Bruce just lays back, no problem. And Mark, and this was one of those shows where my background and familiarity with the team showed what arguably one of the better Lion players. He actually goes from being a Penn State Nittany Lion when he was drafted to a Detroit Lion, and I kidded around with him about that as well. He went from one Lion to another. So my hats off once again to Mark Mancini, and again, I'll say it again, hats off to Russell Branham for the hospitality that he exhibited, Candy Ebling and I, as we watched Chase Elliott go out there and win that race at Talladega. And I'm mentioning a little auto racing tonight because George Eichhorn and I went to an Indianapolis 500 for the first time, and Al Unser Jr. won. And now I'm mentioning this because a offspring off of a legendary racer, again, that all took place again when you talk about the Elliott name being a popular driver as well. So it's interesting how you connect the dots between Indian, Talladega, Elliott, Unser. And you guys did an unbelievable job with what we had to work with. That's why I enjoy continuity on our shows. Folks, you know, one of the reasons I like to stay with my same people is the continuity that I have amongst my crew is something I take a lot of pride in. And when I can find Jeremy, and I think the world of Tom, because we have a lot of fun doing basketballs and other things that we do. George, what can I say? You know, you've been around forever. So with that said, okay, Jeremy, give everybody opportunity how they can get a hold of you.
Well, you can find me on Kneecap Biting with Smoking Jeremy B on YouTube, on the South Florida Tribune under the Motor City Tribune heading with my editorials about the Lions. And you can also find me on Facebook at Motor City Kneecap Biters, which is my group that I created with a couple of other Lions fans that are podcasters.
Okay, Dom.
Well, you can obviously find me right here, right now on Fire Up Michigan with you three lovely gentlemen. Wednesdays on Jeremy's show, we do the NFL roundtable. That's Smoking Jeremy B. No, I can't even talk. God, it's been a long day, long week, long life. Kneecap Biting with Smoking Jeremy B. Thursdays, I do Alex Fleming's NFL Carousel. That's at 7 p.m. Fridays, my show, The Gauntlet, moved from Saturdays to Fridays. That's at 8 p.m. That's myself, James Tatum, Jay Nelson, and JJ Jenkins. And then Sundays at 8 p.m. That's Basket Bros. That's myself, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth, Will Vogel, Jay Nelson, and Jacob Christner.
I had a good time yesterday, even though it was on Interstate 20. And obviously I took a little, but you guys were great about it. You obviously knew I had responsibilities in Talladega. And because I enjoy the chemistry with you guys, I was going on that show no matter what. And I think we had a lot of fun talking about it. Yesterday's episode featured on Magic Johnson. And for a lot of people, the Fire Up Michigan crew, everybody, I can tell you right now, to me, I think Magic Johnson's one of the top 5 players to ever play the game. And I'll even take it a step further. I'll put him above LeBron James. Another day for another time. My opinion. George Eichhorn, wrap it up.
All right. You can get a hold of me at SNG Sports 99 on Twitter. George Eichhorn at LinkedIn. Eichhorn at yahoo.com. And you can read me on a hard copy, Detroit Monitor, and also on the Motor City Tribune website.
as well as your book. One more time, just mention the
One
name.
more time, Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air for $19.99. There's a link on the Motor City Tribune website, and also you can go to Arcadia Publishing if you want to go online and look for it there, or eBay or whatever.
That's fine. Good enough. All right. Well, I mentioned the YouTube channel, South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. Please subscribe. Twitter at Tribune South, and the website www.southfloridatribune.com. But you can also email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Candy Abilene does an unbelievable job. I'm going to give her a special shout out today. I really feel I need to. I normally take long drives all the time. Yesterday I was feeling a little ill on the road, and Candy Abilene did one of the best even keeled jobs I've ever seen in terms of taking it. I could drive all the time, but sometimes when you're feeling ill on the road, she stood up there like a trooper and did an unbelievable job. So great experience over at Talladega. Once again, Russell Branham, you're the best. And George Eichhorn and I plan to work with him in the coming weeks as we promote Homestead. And George's been my valuable tag team partner for a long time. But you know what? Smoking Jeremy and you, Dom, to me, you're two of the best additions I've had all year, and I enjoy working with you guys big time. So with that said, that concludes this edition of Fire Up Michigan. So on behalf of Jeremy, Dom, George, my name is Scott Morgan-Roth, wishing you a good night, and we look forward to seeing you all next Monday night. Take care, God bless, and be safe. Bye-bye now.
Go Lions.
Do something.